I like the idea of Margot playing Sharon, watching the real Sharon, and then just and we're watching Margot.
At 61, Quentin Tarantino has given us the most unforgettable women in cinema history.
I said, goddamn, goddamn.
From Mia Wallace's twist contest to Beatrix Kiddo's samurai sword, from Jackie Brown's street-smart survival to Django's Broomhilda's fierce loyalty.
The story I want to know the most about is Mia Wallace, as far as a viewer is concerned. I mean, I know everything.
But behind the typewriter of Hollywood's most obsessive filmmaker,
knock this shit out. She'll be sitting down. Okay. She's sitting down. Action. Bring the collateral fucker over here. Whoa!
lived a heart that beat with the same intensity as his most passionate characters.
And I've actually had women kind of describe that to me about how they like the fact that like her character like seems to be in control, but she's not in control.
There are directors, and then there are cultural revolutionaries. Tarantino wasn't just a storyteller. He was a video store clerk turned cinema god, a man who transformed his personal obsessions into pop culture gospel. But behind the trademark dialogue, behind the non-linear narratives and explosive violence, lived a man shaped by love in all its complicated forms. At 61, Tarantino finally revealed the 5 women who didn't just inspire his greatest female characters, but carved themselves into the very DNA of his twisted romantic soul. The video store customer who got away, the director's daughter who rejected his genius, the Oscar winner who almost tamed him, the muse who became his cinematic goddess, and the Israeli singer who finally captured his heart. These aren't movie fantasies. These are the real women behind cinema's greatest female revenge stories. 5. Daniella Pick. By 2009, Quentin Tarantino was 46 years old and Hollywood's most eligible bachelor. He had conquered cinema, revolutionized dialogue, and created some of the most iconic female characters in film history.
Up in the spotlight, so she's like a princess.
Wow.
But we just let it drift away, and then she went on and lived her life, and I went on and lived mine.
But he had never truly been conquered himself. Then he traveled to Israel to promote Inglourious Bastards and met Daniella Pick, a pop singer who had never seen Pulp Fiction and couldn't care less about his reputation. Daniella wasn't impressed by the Tarantino mythology. She was the daughter of Israeli musician Sofia Pick, comfortable in her own artistic world, unswayed by Hollywood glamour. When Quentin tried his usual routine, the rapid-fire film references, the manic energy that had charmed countless women, Daniella simply listened and then talked about music instead. Their courtship unfolded across continents and years. Unlike his previous relationships that burned hot and fast, this was a slow-building love story that Tarantino, the man who specialized in non-linear narratives, experienced in real time. Daniella taught him patience, something his hyperactive mind had never learned. When they married in 2018, Tarantino was 55, an age when most confirmed bachelors have given up on love entirely. But Daniella had done something no other woman had managed. She made him want to be more than just a filmmaker. She made him want to be a husband and eventually a father. Their son Leo was born in 2020, turning the man who had spent decades writing about violence into someone who now thinks about bedtime stories and school pickups. Daniella didn't just capture Tarantino's heart. She rewrote his entire third act, proving that sometimes the best love stories are the ones that come when you've stopped looking for them. For Tarantino, Daniella Pick wasn't just his wife. She was his plot twist, his happy ending, his proof that real life could be better than any script. 4. Uma Thurman. In the pantheon of Tarantino's cinematic obsessions, no woman looms larger than Uma Thurman.
My feeling about Uma is I really like Uma a lot, and we get along really well. She doesn't strike me sexually.
She wasn't just an actress in his films. She was his artistic collaborator, his creative obsession, and possibly the most dangerous relationship of his career, because it lived in that gray area where art and life become indistinguishable. Their collaboration began with Pulp Fiction in 1994, where Uma's Mia Wallace became an instant icon. The twist contest, the overdose scene, the dangerous chemistry with John Travolta, all of it seemed to channel something deeper than mere acting. Tarantino had found his perfect woman on screen, a blend of vulnerability and strength that matched his own complex view of femininity. But it was Kill Bill that revealed the true depth of their connection. Tarantino wrote the role of Beatrix Kiddo specifically for Uma, crafting a revenge fantasy that seemed to spring from his own romantic obsessions. The bride wasn't just a character. She was Tarantino's idealized woman, fierce, loyal, deadly, and ultimately unreachable. Rumors swirled about their off-screen relationship during those years. The intensity between them was palpable, the creative process so intimate that observers wondered where the professional ended and the personal began. Uma became Tarantino's cinematic goddess, the woman he could love completely but only through the safety of film. When their professional relationship cooled after Kill Bill Volume 2, something essential shifted in Tarantino's work. He never again wrote a female character with the same obsessive detail, the same personal investment. Uma Thurman taught Tarantino that sometimes the greatest love affairs happen between a director and his muse, passionate but ultimately confined to the screen where fantasy is safer than reality. 3. Mira Sorvino. In the mid-1990s, when Quentin Tarantino was riding the wave of Pulp Fiction's success, and Mira Sorvino had just won an Oscar for Mighty Aphrodite,
She gets a lot of abuse, but she gives as well as she gets. I did like the idea of this dangerous prisoner being a woman.
they seemed like Hollywood's perfect power couple. Both were at the peak of their creative powers. Both represented the smart, independent cinema that was reshaping the industry. For a brief, shining moment, it looked like Tarantino had found his intellectual equal. Mira wasn't just another actress dazzled by his fame. She was Harvard-educated, multilingual, the daughter of actor Paul Sorvino, comfortable navigating both high art and popular culture. When Tarantino launched into his trademark monologues about obscure films and pop culture minutiae, Mira could match him reference for reference, insight for insight. Their relationship played out in the glare of Hollywood's spotlight. Red carpet appearances where they looked genuinely happy, interviews where their mutual respect was obvious, a romance that seemed built on shared artistic values rather than mere attraction. For once, Tarantino appeared to be dating someone who could challenge his mind as much as capture his heart. But the very intensity that made their relationship fascinating also made it unsustainable. Two brilliant, driven artists at the height of their careers proved to be oil and water when it came to building something lasting. Mira wanted a partner who could occasionally turn off the movie obsession and just be present. Tarantino wanted someone who could live entirely within his cinematic universe. When they split, Hollywood insiders weren't surprised, but they were disappointed. Mira Sorvino had represented Tarantino's best chance at a traditional celebrity romance, proof that he could love someone as smart and accomplished as himself. Instead, she became a reminder that intelligence and compatibility aren't always the same thing. 2. Sofia Coppola. In the early 1990s, when Quentin Tarantino was still a video store clerk turned overnight sensation, he found himself in the orbit of Hollywood royalty through Sofia Coppola.
I don't treat her like a lady. I don't create a special rules for her that I wouldn't do to the other characters.
She wasn't just Francis Ford Coppola's daughter. She was an emerging artist in her own right, someone who understood the weight of cinematic legacy and the burden of living up to impossible expectations. Sofia represented everything Tarantino both craved and feared about legitimate Hollywood. She had grown up on movie sets, learned filmmaking at the master's knee, carried herself with the quiet confidence that only comes from true artistic pedigree. For Tarantino, who had educated himself in the aisles of video archives, Sofia was both inspiration and intimidation, wrapped in effortless cool. Their brief relationship in the early 1990s was a clash of cinematic philosophies disguised as romance. Tarantino was all explosive energy, rapid-fire dialogue, and pop culture obsession. Sofia was measured, contemplative, drawn to quiet, emotional truths rather than genre fireworks. Where he saw filmmaking as a celebration of everything he loved about movies, she saw it as a deeply personal form of expression. Sofia wasn't impressed by Tarantino's encyclopedic film knowledge or his ability to quote entire scenes from obscure exploitation films. She had grown up around real filmmakers, understood the difference between loving movies and making them. When Tarantino tried to dazzle her with his manic enthusiasm, Sofia simply waited for the real person underneath the performance. Their breakup was quiet, civilized, and devastating to Tarantino's ego. Sofia went on to become an acclaimed director in her own right, creating intimate, personal films that were the antithesis of everything Tarantino represented. She had rejected not just him, but his entire approach to cinema. Decades later, when interviewers asked about his early romantic influences, Tarantino would speak carefully about Sofia with a mixture of respect and lingering regret. She had shown him that true artistic sophistication couldn't be performed or borrowed, only earned through quiet dedication to craft. In many ways, her rejection forced him to dig deeper, to find his own authentic voice rather than trying to impress others with borrowed knowledge. Sofia Coppola taught Tarantino that artistic pedigree can't be earned through obsession, and that sometimes the most sophisticated women see through your act before you even know you're performing one. 1. Connie Zastoupil. Before Quentin Tarantino conquered Hollywood, before he became the king of cool dialogue and non-linear narratives, there was Connie Zastoupil, a production assistant who worked on his early projects.
Having her be a woman would be both interesting and provocative, and I actually like the idea of throwing this feminine energy in the midst of all these guys.
And became the first woman to truly break his heart in the film industry. She wasn't a famous actress or Hollywood royalty. She was a hardworking crew member who saw Tarantino not as a genius auteur, but as an ambitious young filmmaker still learning his craft. Connie entered Tarantino's life during the early 1990s, when he was transitioning from video store clerk to legitimate filmmaker. She worked behind the scenes, organizing schedules, managing chaos, keeping productions running while Tarantino focused on his artistic vision. For him, she represented the perfect combination of industry knowledge and down-to-earth authenticity. Their relationship developed slowly, built on long nights editing, shared takeout dinners, and conversations about movies that lasted until dawn. Connie understood Tarantino's obsessions, but wasn't overwhelmed by them. She could appreciate his encyclopedic film knowledge while still challenging his ideas, grounding his manic energy with practical wisdom. But as Tarantino's career exploded after Reservoir Dogs, their relationship couldn't survive the pressure. Success changed him, brought new opportunities, new temptations, new people who wanted pieces of his attention. Connie watched the man she cared about transform into someone she barely recognized, consumed by fame and the Hollywood machine. Their breakup was messy, painful, and deeply personal. Connie had loved Tarantino before he became Tarantino, and losing her felt like losing his connection to who he used to be. She represented the road not taken, the possibility of a simpler life built on genuine connection rather than industry success. Years later, when interviewers asked about his early romantic influences, Tarantino would speak carefully about those days, never naming names but acknowledging the cost of choosing career over love. Connie had shown him that success doesn't always bring happiness, that sometimes the people who love you for who you are can't follow you to who you become. Connie Zastoupil taught Tarantino that the price of greatness is often paid by the people who believed in you first, and that some heartbreaks shape not just your art, but your soul.